Hey, what's up? Hello, everyone. Welcome into Fantasy Filmball, the show where we turn movies into sports and sports into something we don't talk about here. My name's Matt.
My name is Dill. My cat's going crazy over there because he is excited that we're talking about Critics' Choice potential winners. And why don't we start off with Best Picture?
Best Picture. All right. At this point, I think that there are three possible winners at the Critics' Choice Awards, and those are The Substance, which I think could massively overperform here. It could be The Brutalist, which I think is going to do very well here, winning 2 awards, but I don't think it's going to win Best Picture. So my pick for Best Picture is Anora. If Anora can't win a Critics' Choice Award, what can it win? This is far and away the regional critics frontrunner this year. It's the film that pundits have been behind all year long, and knowing that the Critics' Choice Awards is less Critics' Choice and more Oscar pundits' choice, Anora feels like the likely winner.
I would agree that those three films, but I would also throw in Conclave because that film was the one that led with nominations. It would have a path through specific places here that could build up an overall package. But I'm with you as well. Anora is currently what I'm predicting just because, like, if Anora can't win here, where can it win? I'm not ready to call Anora dead in the water yet. So I'm holding it here at CCA, but I'm very wary if it is Substance surging at the perfect time. Brutalist just being the film that the critics go out for, regardless of where they're at if they're trying to predict the Oscars.
Something I'm very confident in, though, is no matter how well Emilia Perez performs through the rest of award season, it will perform terribly at the Critics' Choice Awards because it is not their type of movie. I think the people who are voting Critics' Choice are the people who are trying to kill Emilia Perez at the moment. It's not industry, and no matter how poorly Emilia Perez does here, it's not changing anything in my predictions anywhere else.
Honestly, I can see a world where Emilia Perez underperforms so much where it only wins like 2, maybe even 1 award here at the Critics' Choice. That would be a massive underperformance where maybe that sparks some eyes, but yeah, it's not winning any of these major awards. So
even then, if Emilia Perez only wins, like, let's say it loses non-English language film, let's say it only wins song, that wouldn't change anything for me. It just shows that this is the group that's like writing op-eds on Twitter about the movie. It doesn't change
yeah,
anything for me going forward into industry awards.
that is going to move us over to our Best Director category, and I feel like we're in collective agreement. Brady Corbet, The Brutalist.
Yeah, Brady Corbet, Brutalist. I feel like it's a season sweeper. Now, that said, I think there's a small, teeny weeny chance that we could see Coralie Farja, but I do think Brady Corbet sweeps the season.
If CCA was based, they would go with Denis Villeneuve, be like, hey guys, we didn't forget about Dune Part 2, but they're not. Brady Corbet sweep. He's winning everything. DGA, BAFTA, it's going to continue here.
So now on to Best Ensemble. Part of me wants to say that Critics' Choice is going to try to boost Sing Sing in whatever way that they possibly can, but that feels like a bit of a long shot. So at this point, I'm going to predict Conclave to be the winner here.
At least just looking at some recent years at Critics' Choice Ensemble, sometimes they go for the expected stuff, sometimes they don't. Last year was Oppenheimer. The year before that was Glass Onion over Everything Ever All at Once. They went with Belfast over everything in 2021. And in 2020, they went with The Trial of the Chicago 7. In 2019, they went with The Irishman over the eventual SAG winner of Parasite. They don't always go for the SAG Ensemble winner unless that SAG Ensemble winner is just so locked in. So I would honestly say for everyone out there, what are you predicting for SAG? Probably don't predict that here. So like I'm
Yeah.
personally predicting Wicked at SAG, so I'm not having that here. And I don't think Sing Sing is really what they would go for. I just feel like pretty much everyone is collectively agreeing Sing Sing is kind of out of it. So I think I'm gonna lean Conclave. But again, if I have Conclave here, I think Conclave needs to really like show its strength somewhere else in the show. But a lot of these winners, I guess, looking at it that aren't the eventual Best Picture winner, really only win 1 or 2 awards at CCA. So I guess Conclave does make sense.
So our next category is Best Lead Actress. And before I would have gone Mikey Madison all the way, but right now I'm going to say it's Demi Moore. I think her speech, it really shifted the tide. It feels like the type of speech that wins awards. And because voting was still open after the Globes, I think that there was enough time to move over to Demi Moore. Now, that said, I do have Honora winning Best Film here, so I do still think that there's a chance that Mikey Madison can win alongside that, build a nice winning package with Best Picture, Best Screenplay, Best Actress, but I don't think Honora needs Mikey Madison to win the top prize here, so I will be going Demi Moore.
Yeah, I think Demi Moore makes more sense But because I have Honora in picture, I think I need to have a package here because typically at CCA, your eventual winner does have a pretty nice package. And if I have Honora there, I kind of need to have Madsen here. Well, if I went with something like Brutalist or Conclave in picture, I could go with Demi Moore. So more just feels right, but against my better judgment, I'm going with Madsen right now.
Best leading actor. I'm going to have to go Adrian Brody here. Again, I think this is a season sweeper. So Brody all the way.
I will also have Adrian Brody. And again, I'm going to have so many Brutalist wins that I probably should pick Brutalist and Best Feature. I think Timmy does have a shot to overtake Brody at some point, maybe at SAG for just one stop. But the fact that he lost to Globe, I think that Brody has basically submitted the Oscar in his name.
Okay, supporting actress. Here's where I'm diverting from what I think otherwise is a season sweeper because I think Zoe Saldana will win everything else, but I'm going to predict Ariana Grande to win the Critics' Choice Award because, like I said, I don't think the Critics' Choice are going to like Emilia Perez whatsoever. This is Ariana Grande's to lose.
I mean, looking at this category, CCA, they get all this notoriety for trying to predict the Oscar, but at least in the supporting actress category, kind of don't. Yes, they did Randolph last year. She was a sweeper. But like looking out for some past years, 2022, they went Bassett. 2020, they went Bakalova. They go off the beaten path, I guess, when the eventual winner is just something that isn't really set in stone at that moment. So I guess I actually am keeping Zoe Saldana just because she feels like the early submitted front runner, and she doesn't feel like she would fit into the same camp as Everything Everywhere and Minari Supporting Actress wins, where those races were a little bit more competitive, at least in what this year really feels like.
But neither of their competitors were in a movie that like the whole group probably wanted to kill. While there's definitely some supporters, there's enough supporters to get Emilia Perez a ton of nominations at the Critics' Choice Awards. I feel like there's just an overwhelming reaction against Emilia Perez, which while I don't think it'll reach the industry, it definitely reaches the overly online critics. That's the difference to me. Zoe Saldana is in a movie that people are responding extremely negatively to. Meanwhile, I think Wicked is sort of reaching its peak. Or maybe it has already reached its peak and it's kind of coming down. There is a chance for Zoe Saldana to win, but I feel like at this moment, Ariana Grande has a better chance here specifically, while Zoe Saldana will continue to pick up steam everywhere else, despite the fact that no one on the internet wants her to.
Let's move to a category where I think everyone in the world can agree with the winner, and that's Kieran Culkin and supporting actor for Real Pain. He's
Yeah.
clearly the only one who has strength across the board at everybody, and even if his film isn't in Best Picture, he continues to get dubs.
Sweep, sweep, sweep. He's sweeping up the season. There's no one else that can win. It's Kieran Culkin. Easy, 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 easy money. Like that is just the most set in stone award.
I went through all of supporting actor, and like they go for the Oscar winner every single year. And it was like a 90% hit rate for like the last 15 years. Like they get it every time. And especially when there's no competition like this, it's just Culkin. Don't overthink it, even if this film's not in Best Picture.
So let's move to original screenplay, where I am going to go with Anora. I mean, looking at their past winners, last year they went with Barbie here, but they did not nominate Anatomy of a Fall last year. And almost every other year they go with the Oscar winner. Everything Everywhere, Belfast, Promising Young Woman. 2019, they did not do Parasite. They went with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. But I will say that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood looked much stronger than it did at the end of the season. So right now, I think that's Anora, which looks strong right now, but might not look strong at the end of the season, depending on how things go from here. But yeah, it's got to be Anora for me. That's the winner.
With the times when they don't go with the Oscar winner, those Oscar winners are much more international skewing, and Substance is the more international skewing film. So, like, if that were to overtake and end up winning the Oscar, CCA is not the place that gives it the precursors like the Globes would or like the BAFTA would. So I'm going with Nora as well, especially because we do both have it winning Best Picture. This is the perfect supplement category for it to bolster that chance.
And in adapted screenplay, I think it's very easy to just say Conclave right here. I'm going to stick with that. I think Conclave is really, really strong. But if we were to see it go somewhere else, let's say Nickel Boys, that could be a sign of things to come. For example, last year, this was the first place that we saw American Fiction take a screenplay prize. American Fiction took it over Oppenheimer here last year, which made no sense at the time, but then that just kept happening everywhere. Happened at BAFTA, happened all over the frickin' place. And the year before, Women Talking won as well. So we're going to see Conclave win here and continue to win. But if Nickel Boys happens, that's worth taking seriously.
Conclave showed its promise. It showed its strength at the Golden Globe. It's going to continue to win everything that it's nominated for. And I think it will be this year's Anatomy of a Fall, where if it's in a category, it just wins by default. There's no thinking about anything else. Where if it's somehow not there, like at WGA where it's not eligible for, that's where we can maybe see Nickel Boys, maybe see something completely random win because all the strong competitors aren't there.
Over to best foreign language film. And this is an interesting category because they often don't go with the Oscar winner. Very often there's a film here that's not nominated at the Oscars that wins. So for example, last year they went with Anatomy of a Fall over The Zone of Interest. The year before they went with RRR over All Quiet on the Western Front. They went with Minari in 2020 over Another Round. And this year, even though Emilia Perez is in Best Picture, I think we could see them go with something like All We Imagine Is Light. But that said, that makes no sense to do. I am going to stick with Emilia Perez, but I wouldn't be overly shocked if it were to lose here.
And I think the one asterisk there would be is those years where they divert from the Oscar winner. It's because that film is in the CCA Best Picture lineup. Anatomy was in Best Picture. RRR was in Best Picture. And while All We Imagine Light did not get that here. So that's why I'm also going with Emilia Perez. Even though we are saying they're not going to love the film, it still got these nominations. And I feel like those nominations are enough to get it the win here. Where like a film, giving an example of like Another Round or All Quiet, while they did lose this award, they didn't perform as great here as they went on to do at the Oscars, while RRR and Minari were the more films across the board at the CCA those years.
So let's move over to Best Animated Film. While it might be really tempting for me to switch over to Flow, I don't know if I can do that because even though Flow won the Golden Globe, they don't go with indie animations here. I'm trying to think of the last time that they went with something that wasn't a mainstream movie.
I'm looking here, and
Never.
honestly, I don't know if they ever have. Like the only exceptions you can maybe find is like Spirit Away in 2002, or maybe like when they go with the Aardman films, because while those are big studios, they're not like the big studio, but
But
still,
they're
it's
they're co-sponsored by Universal.
so yeah, like they always go for the biggest, most popular winning film. Like even in 2021, they went with The Mitchells versus the Machines when they could have gone with something like Flea, which got multiple nominations. That just points to me that Wild Robot is fitting what they like because it's visually stunning, it's populist. All their winners kind of fit those categories.
Mitchells versus the Machines says that even when they don't go with the Oscar winner, they still go with something that fits that like big blockbuster popular movie. They're not going with Flea and they're not going with Flow. So Wild Robot wins here, even though I think Flow will take the Oscar in the end. The Wild Robot wins here.
This category is so fun how everyone in the world thought this thing was basically a done deal. And like, I know there were some people like yourself who are like, oh, there's a shot for Flow. Like, even when we did our tier list, I put Wild Robot as the win category. And like, the only chance for an upset was Flow. And I'm just glad that we're in a reality where it is a race because I love both these movies. And I'm glad they're both getting recognition, at least at these televised awards.
So moving over to Best Cinematography. This is a category where usually it sticks the same between the Critics' Choice and the Oscar. But there have been a few years recently where it's diverted. 2022, they gave it to Top Gun Maverick, which was not nominated. Power of the Dog, they gave it to, which lost eventually to Dune. Nomadland, they gave it to, which lost to Mank. But before that, they had a really great track record. And of course, last year, Oppenheimer won. Now, it would be very easy here to say Brutalist wins, but I think I'm gonna go with Nickel Boys as the winner.
There's really three films that can win here. Like you said, Brutalist makes the most sense on paper, especially if someone out there is predicting Brutalist for Best Picture. My issue is like, is Brutalist winning the Oscar?
Yes.
And that's really where the question comes from, where it seems like the front runner now, and most likely will go on to win. I could still see an avenue where maybe it diverts. But at least for me, the biggest thing that you said there is in 2021, they went with Power of the Dog over Dune. They haven't awarded Dune yet. So we can't use they haven't given it Dune this, so they can't give it to it again. And I don't know. I feel like CCA, we'll talk about this in another category. They like to stand up for stuff that the Oscars or other award shows don't really care about when they deem them ineligible or just don't put them in that category. And I could see a world, and that's what I'm predicting right now, is for CCA to go in their own avenue here and go Dune Part 2.
I'm surprised you didn't say Nosferatu, seeing as that is currently the critics' leader for cinematography.
Nosferatu is one I would love to see happen. It's just one of those things I think will not translate to wins at these industry shows, but we'll still get nominations as we've seen here.
Best editing, I have challengers winning.
I do too. Just like I said in the last category, they like to have their voices heard when they're not doing Oscar predicting. It's either they Oscar predict or they do something crazy that no one else in the industry is going to do. And I think this is an example here with challengers. But if Conclave is our winner at CCA for Best Picture, Conclave wins here. But if Conclave doesn't win here and it's challengers, that's where the door opens for Honora or Brutalist or something else.
Challengers just feels like it has to win editing somewhere. It's currently the critics' frontrunner for editing, and so that's a little bit why I'm going with it here. Because the Critics' Choice seems to like it more than most other places, despite it missing Best Picture here, I got a feeling in my bones that Challengers wins here. The same way that I look back to Baby Driver, which has been my counterpoint the entire time, the super flashy, showy, in-your-face editing that takes this award.
And I currently have challengers, but at least looking over their recent winners and their existence since 2009, there is something that's really glaring out to me that could happen. You mentioned Dune Part 2. I mentioned in the last category, they didn't go Dune last time. And Joe Walker is the most nominated editor in this award show history, and he is yet to win. I don't think they think like that here. That is something that could happen. So I think it's between those three. It's challengers if they're going their own way. It's Conclave if that's winning Best Picture here. Or it's Dune if they are either one Oscar predicting or two being like, Joe Walker, you're the GOAT. Here's a win.
Another thing to keep in mind is they do often go for winners that aren't nominated at the Oscars. For example, West Side Story, First Man, Birdman as well. So oftentimes we do see it go to films that don't end up here at the end of the day. So the next category is production design. And here, despite the fact that I think The Brutalist will win the Oscar for production design, I'm sticking with Wicked because last year we saw Critics' Choice. They went with Barbie in both categories, even though the Oscars eventually went with Poor Things. Critics' Choice, they were Barbie all the way. And this year, I think Critics' Choice is going to be Wicked all the way. So that wins production design. And in a moment, we'll talk about costumes. It wins costumes too.
I totally agree. Both of these award shows, the Oscars, you can even lump the BAFTA in there too. They always double up. Costumes, production design, at least in recent history, they are going to the same film. And I think Wicked is going to win both at all three. Maybe that's crazy. Maybe it's dumb to have that because normally one of them diverts. But currently, I have Wicked taking production and costumes at both.
I will just quick correction there, which is they haven't doubled up all the time in recent years. For example, 2022, they went Babylon in production and Black Panther in costumes. 2021, they went Dune in production and Cruella in costumes. And 2020, they went Mank in production and Ma Rainey in costumes. So they haven't been doubling up all the time. And it's also worth noting they have had a really good track record outside of last year. It's like in costumes and less so production design, but costumes, they have had a really good track record lately. But yeah, I'm sticking with Wicked for both categories, despite the fact that I think there's a possibility that Brutalist upsets at the end of the day in production design.
Just looking at these stats for production design, they gave this award to Gladiator in 2000, and they didn't do the award again until 2009 for Avatar. So a little nice break. Gladiator was just so impressive in production design, they had to award it.
Well, I think they didn't do many tech categories before 2009. Tech categories were like, they would do like a special mention for them, but they weren't official awards until 2009 when they, I think, decided to become like, we're trying to predict the Oscars rather than just being like a little Critics' Choice Awards show. Because they really have had a push over the past 15 years or so to be more serious, to be taken more seriously, to be looked at as a stop on the Oscar race. So I think that's why that's the case. Overall, though, what if we see Nosferatu upset in either production design or costume design? Do you think that's a possibility?
It could be a possibility. It would be weird to win one of those and not win cinematography, since that's the thing most people are coming out of that film, either awarding on the critical circuit or just talking about. So, I mean, I would say it's top three in all three of those categories, maybe four in cinematography, but it's in the convo. I just think they're more likely to go with a film that's in Best Picture for those.
Let's move on to hair and makeup.
On paper, Substance should walk away with it, and it's currently what I'm predicting. But the last 2 years, their Oscar predicting has been very wrong in this category. 2023, they went with Barbie, a film that wasn't even shortlisted at the Oscars. 2022, they went with Elvis, which lost to The Whale on the big night. But before that, their track record went pretty well. Tammy Faye, Ma Rainey, Bombshell, Vice, Darkest Hour. They had a slew of being right in the category. They had a year where they went with a film they love that didn't even make the short list. So to me, it's Substance, or if you want to be crazy and go with Wicked, but it's Substance.
It's the substance. They will go with the front runner and they will go with a movie that they clearly love. Now, it is worth noting they have never done in the category's history, they've never awarded anything with horror makeup, even when the Academy has. But there's a first for everything. So the substance wins, even though it's unprecedented, even though they didn't go for Poor Things last year, which had some similar effects, some similar gore. I think the substance is the first of its kind to win here. Because how could it not?
Yeah, I think last year too was more so a shock for Barbie, not just to win, but to upset Maestro at that time, which was the
Mhm.
front runner for most people. We had times where we were both Poor Things supporters over Maestro. It was just Poor Things was never really the front runner until it started to win stuff at the end. While
Yeah.
Maestro was what most people out there were predicting, and it was attached to a Best Picture nominee, it was attached to an acting performance. But like, I guess that just shows that they'll go for the movie they like more. Well, both those films were in Best Picture. Clearly, Barbie was the film they liked more. So like, if Substance had a very strong contender this year, which I don't even know what would be number two at this point, it would show to me like, hey, Substance, they like that movie more. They're going to go with that over whatever is the typical biopic transformation type makeup contender.
I suppose the runner-up might be Wicked at this point. We're
They
seeing a
showed
Barbie level performance from Wicked, where, Barbie won costumes, production, makeup. We could see the same thing happen. Now, over in visual effects, this is an open shut category. It's Dune Part 2. There's nothing else that can win. Do we need to say more?
we do not.
So let's move over to Best Original Score. Sometimes they do weird things in this category. For example, they went with Tar in 2022, which did not have a score. Most other years, though, they stick with what the Oscar does, except 2018, First Man. I'm going to stick with my gut for Challengers. It is First Man, and it wins the Golden Globe, it wins the Critics' Choice, and it's snubbed for the Oscar. Could also see a world where Brutalist or Conclave win here. And I know you're going to make an argument for Dune Part 2, right?
Dune Part 2 would be my alternative, where if they want to do something weird like the Tar year, Dune Part 2 is the one for them to do it. What you said about Challengers is echoing what I've thought about Challengers since I saw the movie. If it's nominated, it wins. If it's there, how can you not pick it to win? The overall strength of that score, whether it's the music itself, whether it's Reznor and Ross, whether it's how it makes you feel, it's just such an easy winner when it's eligible. Honestly, I'm not thinking too much about any other contenders, but Dune would be my alternate if I had to pick one.
So, song is an interesting one because let's look at last year when there were two songs from the same movie. And did they go with the Oscar winner of What Was I Made For? No, they went with I'm Just Ken. Thinking about Emilia Perez here, the one that we just saw the Golden Globes go with was El Mal. And that seems like the obvious one to go with, but what if the Critics' Choice Awards goes with Mi Camino?
So I'm noticing through some of these is if there's a song with an actor in a movie, they kind of like to go for that. Barbie has Ken. Then you go back to something like One Night in Miami with Leslie Odom
Yep, Speak
Jr.
Now.
Then you have Rocket Man with Taron Egerton, and then you have Wild Rose of Jesse Buckley. So like Shallow of Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper. So like when there is an eligible real contender that has an actor who's nominated, if not winning their category, they like to go that way. And I think El Mal is the one here. And honestly, for the Barbie comparisons, I kind of feel like Mi Camino would fit more to the What Was I Made For, and El Mal more to I'm Just Ken in terms of the song's energy and how it makes you feel. Makes it feel more like this would be the place to go El Mal more so than Globes. And Globes went with El Mal as well.
I'm sticking with El Mal. I'm just saying that there's a possibility that they don't
Definitely.
necessarily go with what everyone else is doing through the season, but I think it's almost certain that El Mal is the stronger one of the two. And even if Mi Camino wins here, it wouldn't change my mind on how things are going to go for the Oscar. And finally, we're on the Best Young Actor Actress category. And this one, I'm a little bit confused as to what to do. None of these films are major contenders in any other category, and I'm really torn between two. Feel like the obvious one to go with is Isaac Wang for Dee Dee. Elliot Heffernan in Blitz has the most emotional role of any of these. There's so much that happens to that kid in that movie. It's a big performance. That might be the way to go. But most years, there's someone who's in a Best Picture nominee here.
Going back to 2014, literally every year except for 2017, 2018 with Florida Project in eighth grade.
But those were also in other categories because Florida Project had other acting
Yeah,
nominations, screenplay, and eighth grade was in
screenplay.
screenplay.
I guess it's 2013 with Blue is the Warmest Color, maybe.
And that was still in, I would assume that was
Okay.
in foreign language film.
So, I mean, looking at the history of this category, it kind of looks like everyone always has kind of been in another category of representation. And at least for me, I honestly think I might go off that path and go with Maisie Stella for My Old Ass. I feel like that's a film that critics
Hmm.
have been kind of giving some attention to. Obviously, she did not win the Gotham, but she was Gotham nominated. So was Isaac Wang, and so was Zoe Ziegler for Janet Planet. But like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like that's a film and a performance that you can kind of get behind. And at least looking at some of these winners, while obviously her film is nowhere near as strong, she kind of feels more like some of these other people than Elliot Heffernan or Isaac Wang.
If I were to not go with Elliot Heffernan, who I will lock in as my pick, I would go with Zoe Ziegler because Janet Planet, more than My Old Ass, is a critic's movie. It feels the most similar to, if I look back to Blue is the Warmest Color, and I think of that film in a lineup that included Ender's Game, way, way back, Book Thief. Mud was a critic's movie too. Blue is the Warmest Color hit with critics. And I don't know. I think Janet Planet's one that really did hit with critics specifically. So I don't know. I'm really torn between Elliot Heffernan and Zoe Ziegler.
This is gonna be the fun thing. It's gonna be the one category I feel like everyone's gonna be doing something different. And it's like the shorts for the Oscars, where like it kind of makes and breaks your predictions. You get this one right on like a whim, you get that whole bonus point where if you get it wrong, you're kind of like a peg down.
So that's going to bring us to the end of today's video. Let us know in the comments what you think. What are you predicting to win the Critics' Choice Award this weekend? Now, as always, thank you so much for watching. My name's Matt.
My name's Dill. This has been Fantasy Filmball.